Consider this a sequel. Just when I thought the beat was done with off-season stonk watches, we got to the end and Birm's like, you know what? I'm having so much fun on last week's episode with True Freshman. He started talking about second-year guys. Whoa, Birm. Save it for next week. We got one more piece of off-season content to get to. So here we are on the Austin and Birm Show. It's Wednesday. It's stonks, and it is second-year Buckeyes. And it's a lot of names that you're probably not going to be surprised by.
Yeah, but we're not going to talk about some of the names that people are expecting us to talk about, right? Like we're not going to focus a lot on Julian Sayin, for example, who's a second-year Buckeye, or James Peoples, or even Peyton Pierce, who we've spent months talking about. This is about the guys that we don't talk about. This is about the underserved. This is about the under-discussed, the underutilized, the players who we are like, oh, I forgot he was there. Until you saw him at practice.
Yeah, but I think big picture, it's interesting, Birm, how many guys we have already talked about on more general stock watches throughout this offseason, throughout spring camp. And it is maybe not to the level of 2014 Ohio State, but it's not entirely dissimilar with the amount of guys that we think are going to take a leap, that may need to take a leap because of the losses that they have suffered elsewhere on the roster. When you have 14 NFL draft picks to replace, that's a daunting proposition. And it is a test of how well you're recruiting. It is how well your program is developing. And everything seems to be on track. But when you're talking about banking on a super sophomore class, there is an element of uncertainty there. So even with names that we've spent a great deal of time that you mentioned on, James Peoples, we know where Julian Sayin fits in here with the quarterback battle, Peyton Pierce. There are other guys on this roster in their second season with Ohio State that are like, it's not a luxury. It may be a necessity that they play a key role for Ohio State.
Yeah, but that's okay. I mean, it's the way it should be, right? If we go back to 11 years now to that battle in August of 2014 for the quarterback position that we didn't expect to be a battle. We didn't know there was going to be a battle until Braxton Miller hurt his shoulder. When second year redshirt freshman JT Barrett emerges as the starting quarterback, how different is that year if JT Barrett doesn't take that leap? And it's funny because we have mentioned a couple of times how those second year guys, those guys in the middle of the freshmen and the veterans, the guys we know are going to be starters, kind of get forgotten. But at that point, like, nobody knew who JT Barrett was in 2014 when he took over that job. Even Cardale Jones was somewhat underknown because he had gone through
as a football player.
Right. He had gone through the prep school route, and he was, not expected to start because Braxton was the 2-time Big Ten Player of the Year, and everyone's just expecting him to be the guy. Does Ohio State win a national championship that year if JT Barrett's not the quarterback? I doubt it. I mean, and that's not a knock on Braxton Miller, but what JT provided as a passer, as a calming influence, everything that he did that year up until he got hurt in the Michigan game, like, I don't know that Braxton could have done that. Now, he would have had a crap ton of electrifying plays and a lot of highlights and probably been in New York as a Heisman finalist just like JT was. But I think that when you look back, it's like you need one of these guys or two of these guys to step up and emerge in a way that maybe we're not counting on yet.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't just a quarterback, though. I mean, you look across that.
Eli Apple, I mean, yeah.
Ezekiel Elliott, Joey Bosa. I mean, everybody that wound up being in that vaunted 2016 NFL draft class, that's what made 2015 frustrating for so many people. But they got to the mountaintop, and it kind of clouds the perception. It's like, well, they could have gone back to back. They didn't. Some complacency crept in. I think that is what's a little bit different about this particular situation as Ohio State comes off the national title, is that these second-year guys have not been to the mountaintop as regular features in the rotation for Ohio State. So if you're watching along on 10 TV Plus, 97.1 The Fan on the YouTube, the list is up there. But as you roll along, yeah, there's headliners, Julian Sayin, James Peoples, that you already are expecting on this list. Peyton Pierce, that we've talked about. Garrett Stover, who was a dude of the week about a month ago. We talked all spring and really in the cornerback and nickel breakdown about what Aaron Scott provides and where he fits in this quote unquote competition there with Devin Sanchez and trying to be the third cornerback for Ohio State. So those guys are almost known commodities just based on how much we've talked about them, but not proven in terms of starters. Jalen McClain in the same situation there at safety. So the full list is available right there, but we've got Julian.
And that's not everyone. I want to be clear. There are players missing, guys that like the Armstrong twins on the offensive line. I still wouldn't anticipate that they make a two deep appearance this year. So if a guy's not in that conversation right now, then he's not on this list.
Yeah. So Julian Sayin, James Peoples, Mylan Graham, Ian Moore, Gabe Van Sickle, Eric Mensah, Dominic Kirks, Peyton Pierce, Garrett Stover, Aaron Scott, Bryce West, Miles Lockhart, Jalen McClain, and Leroy Roker are sort of the group that we are working from here today on the beat. So eliminating some of those guys we've talked a great deal about, Birm, where would you begin here?
It's sort of the common thread throughout this entire offseason, but to me, it's the defensive line. I really thought that Dominic Kirks was a bright spot in the spring, a guy that we had not talked about at all last year. He was a flip like 2 days before signing day from Washington. He didn't enroll early, got to Ohio State in the summer, didn't play, was not a guy that anybody really was counting on. And I thought in the spring game, he got dinged up, but before that, he was playing really well. And he's got that prototypical defensive end size that people want. That's 6'4.5", 255-pounder body. The frame is good. The athleticism is there. I think that he's a player that we are not talking about enough. And we've spent a lot of time talking about Zion Grady and Epi Satanale and these other defensive ends that may need to step up if Ohio State's defensive line wants to really gel. But Dominic Kirks is a guy that belongs in that conversation. And to me, the other one is Eric Mensah, who every time, we always talk about the guys who were the last guys to leave the practice field, and Mensah is regularly one of them. And he's not being discussed. Every time we talk about who's going to step up, who's going to be that third defensive tackle, we talk about Jason Moore, we talk about Will Smith Jr., we talk about Tywone Malone. We never mention Eric Mensah. And I think that's probably unfair because I don't know that there's any reason to speculate that Will Smith or Jason Moore or even Tywone Malone is like certifiably ahead of him on the depth chart at this point. We just don't know, but we make those assumptions, and players like Mensah kind of get left out.
I was trying to remember if it was Student Appreciation Day. It must have been. It was a full practice that we saw, and it was competitive. And it was like, Dominic Kirks is making a lot more plays than I would have anticipated on this afternoon. I remember leaving the Woody that day and trying to put that in perspective in that, like, I didn't necessarily think he's going to have to go play at defensive end. Now the opportunity is there, but it feels to me like there's 5 guys at that position at this point where Ohio State doesn't necessarily need it. Well, if Dominic Kirks is making plays on the practice field, are there other ways? Could he potentially supplement some of this depth at a 3 technique spot? And I don't know that that was the first way that anybody thought about him during the recruitment, or even the second way or the third way. But I mean, it's got to be at least in consideration, because everything we've talked about is finding that solution on the interior, and someone's going to have to step up and do that. And maybe it's too late. I don't know. He's not somebody that I've seen in the summer to check in on the offseason workout plan, what Mickey Marotti, what Larry Johnson envisioned for him heading into July 31st. But like, Edric Houston made that change pretty much on the fly, and he's not going to be able to do this all by himself.
Yeah, and that comment is, I think, indicative of one of my pet peeves about sports these days. Like, oh, we got enough, we don't need them. Like, you need everyone. Like, you need everyone on that roster. If you have 85 guys, you want them all to be good. You want them all to be able to contribute. You want them all to have the chance to develop into full-time, regular time players. And Dominic Kirks, certainly, like I said, I mean, from a physical standpoint, looks the part, played a lot more football than we anticipated in the spring, played it a lot better. I don't think that we should just presume. And this is where NIL and the way that money gets spent and the way these conversations go kind of colors the conversation. But a guy like Bo Atkinson, yeah, he had 7.5 sacks last year at North Carolina. He's expected to come in and be a regular player and a major part of the rotation for Larry Johnson. But we don't really know if Bo Atkinson is leaps and bounds better than Dominic Kirks at this point. Like, we've never seen him. Like, we didn't even get to watch Bo Atkinson in the spring. So
right.
Like, we don't have any idea what he is. And so we are unfamiliar with the transition for him from North Carolina to Ohio State, how that's going. We've never spoken to him really. Like, it is, we can look at it. We can look at the roster and say, okay, well, here you go. You've got Kenyatta Jackson, and you've got Caden Curry, and then you've got what? You know, like you have CJ Hicks, who, he's moving down, but he's never played there. You have Bo Atkinson, but he's never played at Ohio State. We have Logan George, but he's never played at Ohio State. So, I still believe that the power of development matters, and Ohio State picked Dominic Kirks, and he's had a year now playing defensive end in Columbus, and we saw what that looked like in the spring. We've only seen 15 practices of Logan George. We've only seen 15 practices of CJ Hicks at defensive end, and we've not seen a single snap out of Bo Atkinson. So, like, there's a chance for anybody to step up and be that guy. And I think that we've just kind of glossed over Dominic Kirks' ability to be in it to the point where, again, I've even said over and over, like, I think Zion Grady's going to have to play, and Epi Santanale is going to be really important. And Kirks is there, and like when you've cut the tape on in the spring, what we've heard, like, and what we saw, you're like, maybe we shouldn't look over that guy.
Yeah, no, I think that's right. And sorry to have annoyed you with my
it's not you.
My comments and my thoughts, Birm.
It's not you. It's something that we hear a lot. It's like, we've got enough of these guys. Like, no, you don't.
I was just thinking maybe there was a different role given the skill set, and maybe there's not. I don't.
Yeah, maybe there is, but whatever it is, like, we got to find it. And he's valuable and useful at any one of these spots, whatever it is.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. Sticking in the trenches, I think probably have not talked about Ian Moore's spring enough. Maybe there was an overreaction to the first week when Ethan Onyanwa wasn't out there with the first string and Philip Daniels wasn't out there, but the guys that were Austin Sareveld and Ian Moore. And I think there was certainly legitimate fire to go with the smoke with Austin Sareveld. And I still believe that he's going to start at right tackle, but they didn't just, Tyler Bowen and Ryan Day didn't just, you'd be like, you know what, let's throw Ian Moore out there just for giggles. I mean, he looks like a real dude. I don't think he's going to start, but we've just really had this conversation about tackle, and it's like Austin Sareveld and Philip Daniels, and it's probably not included Ian Moore to the level that he deserves.
Yeah, and a lot of that conversation is similar to what I just said about the defensive ends. Yeah, we saw Ethan Onyanwa, we saw Philip Daniels a little bit, but we don't know. We don't really know what they are when it comes to playing in the Big Ten on a regular basis. And Philip Daniels more than Ethan Onyanwa, but Ian Moore is a legitimate 6'6". He's 310 pounds. He looks like a true tackle. When Ohio State recruited him, there was some concession or some discussion, I apologize, about maybe having him as be one of those swing guys who could move around the interior versus, to the outside of the line. And he's really just, his body's shaped out to be a really good offensive tackle. He was, in Ohio State's mind, an absolute must get in the class of 2024. And I think because he committed so early and because he's from Indiana, people just assumed, he's not really an elite tackle prospect. And I always thought he was. I remember very specifically writing about him, saying that, like, he's exactly what a 5-star offensive tackle looks like. And you're starting to see it come into its own. And the best thing to me, and again, this is why I like the summer opportunities we have to talk to kids, is that we really saw Ian coming out of his shell a lot this summer, like very personable, confident, like starting to really feel like he belongs. And I know people love when I get psychological, but like I think a huge part of things for Ohio State players is just understanding that you belong at Ohio State. And that's especially true for a guy from small town Indiana, who it might take a few minutes to figure out, like, am I good enough for this? And once you get over that mental hurdle, then you really start to tap into what you're capable of. And I'm not going to write him off as not having a chance to usurp Ethan Onyanwa. I think that there's a legitimate battle there. And I think that's why we've actually seen Ethan Onyanwa transform himself physically the way he did from when he got to Ohio State to now, because like, I think he probably realized, this is not a given. I'm not walking in and being handed this job, especially now that Justin Fry's not even.
Yeah. I don't think that even applies just to Ethan Onyanwa. It goes back to what you were talking about with, the confidence and the belief that you belong. For Ian Moore, if you give someone like him, so, again, sometimes we make too much of the spring reps, and I'm not coming at it from the perspective of, this means the competition is legitimate or that Ian Moore could start at left tackle for Ohio State. I'm talking about the value for the depth and the long-term development. If you put him in this spot on day one, on day two, that's validation that the work you've been putting in in the weight room has caught attention of the coaching staff. Seen this all the time. I talk about the Darren Lee story from a decade ago. I guess this is the 2014 themed episode to go with these super sophomores, but it's giving them an opportunity and saying that you've earned it and you belong here. And then if there are days where you go out there and you win 60, 65% of your reps, and then that is a momentum builder to carry that forward. And it doesn't mean that it pays off immediately, but it is a day-by-day stacking of productive outings, productive practices, productive workouts that you build on for the future. That's especially true on the offensive line, where it is a long-term process, and you're not going to be done at the end of your freshman year. You may not be done by the end of your sophomore year. You may not be ready. And there's a legitimate possibility based on Ethan Onwa's arrival here and what Austin Cerebell is doing, and then the addition of Phillip Daniels, that Ian Moore doesn't have to play a role. If he is the fourth tackle on this team and doesn't play extensively in high leverage snaps this year, that's fine. I think Ian Moore understands that, and that Ohio State believes in him for the long term. But also, Ohio State had to use 4 and 5 tackles to get through last year. So they need that person to be ready to step in. And they've had to do that before guys would ordinarily be, quote unquote, fully ready to play that spot. So he is well worth keeping an eye on going into July 31st.
Yeah, and we watched, and I'm not going to say it's a like for like when it comes to the career arc, but the Luke Montgomery path is very similar. I mean, Luke in the middle point of his second season, this last October, was not really a part of the plan as far as the offensive line goes. And then he got put into a moment where he had to come in and sink or swim. And the year and a half that he had been working, it all clicked, and there it was. And now he's projected to be a starter, or at least a rotational starter for Ohio State heading into this fall. So I think you can look at a similar path for Ian Moore. He's going to have to play this year. I don't think there's any doubt about that. I think it's not even about have to play. It's like we want him to play because he has a ton of potential to be that type of impact player. And maybe it doesn't have to be this year, as you said, but if he can come in and compete and nose to the grindstone, iron sharpens iron with Ethan Onwa to put himself in a position to be this team's starting left tackle in 2026, that's still a productive year. That's still like a win as far as Ohio State goes, to have then a redshirt sophomore being your starting left tackle in 2026. I think that's a win.
Yeah, and everything starts in the trenches. I don't think that's new to anyone who follows Ohio State or the Big Ten. The way I think I must apologize. I was on Bishop and Friends on Monday, and I was just talking about one of the position battles that I wanted to watch at nickel. I was not allowed to select quarterback, and I did not mention Miles Lockhart, and I felt really bad. I was just, Aaron Scott can force Jermaine Matthews inside, and look out, Bryce West could be playing in there, and you also have Lorenzo Styles. And I was like, you're such an idiot, Austin. And I say that to myself every day. But it's like, you were talking in March about Miles Lockhart being someone that you had to factor into this competition, and now you're 2 weeks away from training camp. You didn't say his name at all. You're the worst.
It's hard. There's 85 dudes on the team. It's hard to remember everyone when you're asked about things in a spontaneous conversation that you don't prepare for. I don't think people truly understand, like, those radio hits are difficult because we have no idea what's going to be asked. And then all of a sudden, like, you just have to be able to come up off the riff and have all of the most pertinent information, up-to-date information, and accurate information at a whim. And sometimes you just forget people. But Miles Lockhart should not be forgotten, as you said. I mean, he was recruited to play the slot, period. So that is what he's there for. Is he in a position to make that push this year? I don't know. Probably not. But again, I think it's a similar situation. Lorenzo Styles is the guy we think will be the starter there. I think even Bryce West might be able to make some moves if Ohio State doesn't have Jermaine Matthews go inside, or if Davis Igbinosun or Devin Sanchez or whatever. Like, there's some pretty good depth at corner, so it's easy to look at Miles Lockhart and say, okay, well, next year's his year. But like, there's room to play, and there's opportunities to play as Ohio State, started to play a little bit more nickel and dime stuff at the end of last year. We saw regularly where Lorenzo Styles was on the field with Jordan Hancock, with Lathan Ransom, with Caleb Downs, with Davis Igbinosun, and with Denzel Burke. So like, there's an opportunity there for that to happen more and more. And those guys shouldn't be overlooked at all.
feel like everybody else on this list has been on a stock watch at some point in the last 6 months, 7 months since the season ended, except maybe Leroy Roker. But I know that you bought some at some point, maybe in training camp a year ago.
Yeah.
I know you are invested in his future.
I am. The comments about Leroy Roker have always been exceedingly positive. There's not been a single like side eye or like, oh, we really didn't get that one right. I mean, this is a kid who had 2 scholarship offers out of high school to play football, and it was from Ohio State and Iowa. Okay, this is a unbelievably good athlete, a 2-sport star in Florida, a really dynamic point guard. Ohio State people have compared him from the minute that they offered him to Malik Hooker, and they think that he's got that sort of upside and athletic potential. And I think it's just another reminder, like Malik Hooker didn't become Malik Hooker until his 3rd year in the program, and then he was gone, like poof, gone. So nobody really had any idea what was coming except for the coaches. And the internet in this style of show and this style of commentary really wasn't present a lot in 2015. So now that we have the platform to talk about guys like this and the opportunity to shed a light on what Leroy Roker can do, I think people should not overlook him either. That's a dude who I think this year has a chance to be like a special teams demon for Ohio State. And as we've seen regularly in the last 6-7 years, those guys who as freshmen or redshirt freshmen, second-year guys, like really dive in and commit to that role and being a dynamic contributor on special teams that typically has served as a launching pad for the future.
How is it possible that 2 programs with the track record of success identifying and developing safeties as Ohio State and Iowa can offer someone a scholarship and everyone else is just like, you know what, we're good. No thanks. We're out.
It's puzzling. It's one of those things that at the time, I remember when Leroy got offered, I'm like, oh, I was the only other offer. Okay, you're all in. Like, why would you not want him? It's like there's nobody in the country better defensively at evaluating players and locating diamonds in the rough more so than Phil Parker in Iowa. So when they offer someone and they see someone as having the right stuff for their scheme like that, you should offer them immediately.
Well, you know what? I'm glad we did sophomore stuff.
On defense.
Part 2.
On defense. I want to be clear. Yeah. On defense.
It's a very different conversation on the other side of football. But although they found some playmakers there too, they just didn't really know how to use them. But that's a different show.
Yeah. I did want to make a special comment here to Jesse Bryant in our the Austin and Birm Show at gmail.com email address, who wanted me to I can't use the first word. It also starts with an F. Second word is France. As Jesse is checking in, he said from northern Spain. So not France, but
did Spain. Not have a happy Bastille Day.
But Spain. So I said, why don't we write a song about that? But thank you, Jesse, for your comment. We'll touch back with you on October 12th as we celebrate Spanish Independence Day.
Well, I'm glad that we got those. You know, never know what kind of content suggestion we're going to get in that email. What is it again?
It's the Austin and Birm Show at gmail.com.
It's great. You know what?
It's good. I'm really happy to see people using it. Thank you for doing so. We will definitely want to use that email address in the future for more shows, whether they are recruiting based, whether they're mailbags on Fridays, whatever. So
we will have a mailbag, another one based on the way that inbox has been filling up. We'll do that on a Freaky Friday this week as we get ready to head to Las Vegas for Big Ten Media Days on Monday. Thursday, I don't know. That could be anything. We'll have to come up with some sort of theme for that show, but I'm sure we will. Thanks for joining us, though, on a Wednesday. Stonk Watches, looking at the second-year Buckeyes as we get another day closer to the start of training camp 2025 for the Buckeyes. So this has been the Austin Birm Show. It's the beat. For Birm, I am Austin. We'll talk to you tomorrow.